When we talk about specificity of Brazilian dance, what is Brazilian dance, it's like trying to find something that cannot be found. Because, you know, Zizek, the philosopher, he told us that when you look to a specificity, what is really in and defines a thing, you are trying to do an inversion. You pick the small and put it in the place of the large. So it's this inversion, of course, when we make it, we lose lots of things. So when we talk about specificity, there is an image about Brazil, but it's a kind of publicity. That is, people that are friendly, happy, no problem, sun, beautiful beaches. This is an image that everybody wants to find in Brazil. And it's the same with Brazilian dance. Everybody wants to find something connected to this image in Brazilian dance. And I could ask, what is the specificity of Italian dance? And it's difficult to answer this because there is not one specificity, but there are lots of characteristics that change over time. But of course, in a place like Brazil, that's an enormous country with big differences, different ways of speaking Portuguese, that even ourselves, we have difficulty to understand Brazilian people of different places when we arrive, we Brazilians. So you can imagine the bodies and what the movement of these bodies do. So they are really different, and there is a big, it's really rich, the variety. This, I think, is the most important way to address to Brazilian dance, to keep in mind the diversity, the variety, the different proportions of relation to climates, food, ways of behaving, ways of dressing, blah, 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 and popular culture, which in our country is very rich. So maybe if I could answer you in one word, I would say we are melted. As every place that belongs to the global world, everybody is connected with everybody in such an intensive way that never happened. So I think we cannot speak of influence anymore, because we are in the web, and in a web we cannot tell exactly where began the information. So we don't know who put the information. So who is responsible for being the influence? You know that things are there, connected and developing connections. So it's not influence, but I think contamination. Everybody is contaminated by everybody. Everybody goes to YouTube, everybody goes to the web, and we know same things at the same time, etc., etc. So this is the first point. It's not like it was previously, but now it's like this. And what we have now is this contamination, international contamination, with Europe and United States and Africa and Latin American and blah, 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 contamination spread all over. But also this contaminates what is in there, because what is there is this that is being contaminated. Then, of course, in this world we live in, modernity and tradition now develops a dialogue with more clarity than before in my way of understanding this. Why? Because more clarity? Because now we know the danger that contamination produces. So we can notice what is going on and could be going on forever, or what can be more defined in a good sense of transformation. It's not controlling, because we cannot control information, but we can know the velocity of disappearance, we can know the danger of disappearance, and we can take care of this, of maintaining things in its own development. Because tradition doesn't remain tradition. Tradition transforms itself through the time. But in its time, when this happens in a velocity, in a hurry, this is danger. And so in Brazil, we, as every country that was colonized, we are very aware of the position of dealing in this web world and what has to be keep in its own velocity of transformation. In these latest years of economical growth and political growth also in Brazil, cultural policies has been developed. Now we have a national plan of culture and a national plan of dance. We never ever had this. It's written for the next 10 years. What is going to be the political culture in Brazil, the political culture of dance in Brazil. So there are laws, there are modes of applying for money in Brazil that are expressed, and this new type of making the production, the financing of culture has changed completely the way of producing in Brazil. We developed a system of financing culture that made a big difference in our country. There is a very good side in this, and there is a very bad side in this. The good side is money. Now there is a big amount of money for culture. The bad side is the way this money is being used. So different rules, laws. We have a main federal law that is national. We have laws that are for regions, and we have laws that are for cities, municipalities. So these three levels of regulation of how to spend money in culture make a big container with the same rules, but in different levels: municipality, regions, and country, national. So, only for you to imagine that if you live in a city, you can apply the regulation, the municipal regulation, you can apply the regional regulation, and you can apply the national regulation. Somehow you will have something. You have chances. But if you are famous, your chances are wide open. If you are less famous, your chances are less open. Why? Because this money, the big amount of money that is this national law, comes from not the government, comes from the institutions that have tax reduction. So our system is based in tax reduction in these three levels: municipal, regional, and national. And tax reduction, what does this mean? You are the owner of something. I come to you, I offer my project that has been approved, and you will have reduction in your taxes, in a 4% reduction, if you give this money to me. But of course, this is what? I'm making private a money that had to be public, because taxes are public money that goes to funding the government. And if you don't pay your taxes, the government has less money, and this money remains with you, and you decide to whom you are going to give this money, but you are protected. The law protects you. You have the right to decide to whom you are going to give this money that does not come to the government. It stays in your pocket, and you give to anyone you want to give that has a project that has been approved. So this is the bad side. The bad side is you give the money not to the government as a tax, but you have a tax reduction, and you give this reduction to anyone you choose by yourself. You are protected by the law, it's legal. So now comes the private interests in financing that are not the same as in a public way of financing, because you are private. So this is the bad side. You are private, of course, you want to attach your name to a renowned artist, a renowned artist, not a not known artist. So the type of art that is experimental doesn't get the same amount of the mainstream art. But even so, the experimental art gets much more than ever because of the big amount that is to be given. So even less, this less is much more. So this is the financing way of producing in Brazil. So this means that we have lots of production, lots of productions. And this continuity in production makes decreasing of quality, because an artist that has to produce to survive cannot produce marvelous things every 6 months. So it's a difficult balance, but now we are aware of this, and we are remodeling these laws just to make them more democratic to all types of arts, and without this need of such a big amount of productivity. So Brazil is completely different nowadays from, I think, many